I had my first listing was over $2 million in Oshawa. And
Your first ever?
First ever. I knocked on the door. I figured if I'm going to start off and knock on doors, I might as well knock on some good doors.
Okay.
So anyway,
That's
I ended up getting a listing presentation. I'd never had a listing before, and I knew who I was up against. They'd told me the names of the other agents who they were considering, and they were names that I knew because they were pretty big names. And that was probably one of the most nervous hours I've had in my entire life, sitting there and presenting to them, knowing that I had no experience and knowing who I was up against. But I just put on that act and faked it. I had somebody called me about a month ago about potentially listing their house. And the first question they asked was what the commission was that I charged. And obviously that's, to me, not the most important thing. It's about what I bring to the table to get them the most money. But anyways, they ended up going with somebody else who was gonna do it for extremely cheap. And the listing went on, and I looked at it, and there was like the toilet seats were up in the pictures. The pictures looked like they were taken off of an iPhone.
Right.
And that house has been sitting on the market for, I guess, a month and a half now, I believe.
That kind of clarity is not always easy to come by when you are like, you're just so focused on building the business to, maximizing your productivity. But the fact that you've got that in mind now, I think not only does that, kind of create a better situation for you in the future, but it's going to strengthen your business, because if you were just business, there'll be some point in time where like you just burn out.
Some people have a hard time wrapping their head around the focus that I put on the social media marketing side of things, but I mean, it's inevitable. Like, that's where everyone's eyes are. I've had listings directly sell. I mean, the one that you shot for me in Fort Perry, that one, the buyer came from seeing my ad. They had somebody who had seen the ad, mentioned it to their friends, who ended up buying the house. When you post something on MLS, your agent's gonna see it, or the buyer's gonna see it on Realtor.ca. They're gonna see the photos, the standard listing. But if I'm, especially going back to working with a media company like you guys, who does that much better of a job, or working with my staging company, and I always emphasize doing as much staging as possible, doing that to a higher degree and preparing the listing to look as good as it possibly can with how you prepare it with the staging, plus how you photo and do multiple videos and do all that stuff. If you do all of those things and then you promote it through ads, the buyer is going to see that directly, and it's going to look a little bit better than maybe the last ad they saw.
All right, so Brad, thank you for joining me for this conversation.
Thanks for having me.
And you've had a friggin' exciting journey over the last couple of years. And so I guess here's an easy one to start off. How many deals did you do last year, and how the hell did you do it?
Last year was a crazy year, 39 deals. I don't know how I did it, because it was the year that really put me to the test with my time. Crazy busy, a lot of stress, especially through the summer and the fall. At one point, I think I had 11 listings at once, and just me by myself. I don't have a team or anything. So it was a lot to handle on my own, which is partially why I'm looking to expand this year a little bit and bring somebody on. But yeah, it really put me to the test, but it was fulfilling at the end of the year to look back on kind of what I did. And yeah.
And so, having 11 listings on the go at the same time, and I'm sure there were other parts of the year where like you had all kinds of clients you were onboarding, clients that you were closing.
Yep.
What were you able to implement in terms of your like process to keep all of those balls in the air?
Yeah, I've always been really organized, a little OCD actually. I plan my 2 weeks in advance in a calendar, like down to the minute, with everything that I have going on.
Right.
With real estate, stuff changes pretty frequently, so I have to adjust. But I think that my organizational skills helped me get through that, because if I wasn't super organized and having everything down to, like I said, the minute, I think I would have really struggled to take care of all the things that I had going on at once and get them all done. Still hard regardless, but I think, and I even had to double down on the organization and make sure that I really had everything dialed in to be able to I didn't want to neglect a single listing or client, obviously. And when you get super busy, it's hard to not do that.
Yeah.
So I really had to make sure I dialed it in so that I could give them all my time and attention.
Yeah. And so tell me a little bit more about like what that looks like on a like on a day-to-day basis. What does your schedule look like?
Schedule, well, I wake up early. I've always done that. I wake up at 5 pretty much every day, and I get a couple hours of work on my computer done as soon as I wake up and get my workout in. That's non-negotiable. That's how I start the morning every day. But then in real estate, the rest of your day is completely different depending on the day. Whether I have showings, a lot of the time, especially in the last year, I've had a lot of listings. So I've been taking care of all those, prepping those, and following up with people, and just putting the time in each one of those. So that kind of changes on a day-to-day basis. But the morning, especially, starting off my day that way, getting my computer work done and my workout and my me time, I get all that out of the way first, and then
It kind of sets you up for the day.
sets me up for the day. Yeah,
Right.
at least, and then I know no matter how crazy the day gets, I feel good because I know I started my day on the right foot and got the stuff done that I need to get done for myself first. Yeah.
Right. And I guess doing it at that time in the morning is an advantage because that's when most of the people are sleeping.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And my clients are sleeping at night. It's hard to get a lot of my stuff done at night because that's when I'm having to text and be on the phone with a lot of my clients and deal with all that stuff. So the morning is the perfect time where a lot of people are asleep and I can just actually focus on those things without distraction.
Right. So as much as, like you said, a lot of that comes from your natural, tendency towards like organization and structure and stuff like that. What are the most important things that you did to create this process for you as a real estate agent and line all of these different priorities up and like know how to do that?
I think a lot of that is honestly learning from other people and absorbing as much as I can from other people who have done it before me and do it now.
Right.
I've always ever since I started and even before, I've watched people closely, people that do a lot of business and people that are successful. I've always been into business and success, and I watch podcasts, and I just kind of take what I can from everybody that I follow.
Right.
And I kind of just try to implement that. I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel. It's easier to look
Right.
at somebody who does things efficiently and effectively and just kind of take what I can from them.
Right. So what are like one or two really, really key insights that you got, like whether it's from a podcast or a book or whatever, that you feel has been instrumental in you being able to be that effective?
Oh, that's a good question. I need to think about that for a second. In terms of my organizational skills, there are other agents who I watch on YouTube, podcasts, social media, like someone like Ryan Serhant,
Right.
who's huge. He's one of the biggest, I would say,
In the world,
and,
yeah.
And he really touches on how important it is to have your day scheduled down to the minute. And I've learned a lot from him in that sense, because obviously someone like that has exponentially more than I do going on, and they find a way to get everything done. So I've learned a lot organizationally and in terms of marketing, branding, things like that. I've learned a lot from him. And even outside of real estate, I've learned stuff. I'm into health and fitness as well. I've always followed people in that space. So I learn a lot about hard work, organization, things like that from those people as well. I mean, I take stuff from a lot of different places, I think.
It's interesting as well because like all of those things like health, fitness, mindset, even like I hear a lot of people talk about like spirituality.
Yeah.
Personal improvement. Everything works together. So if you want to be, at your peak of productivity in the specific niche of real estate, it's only going to work if all of those other things
I agree.
are going well.
100%.
And so, and how long have you been in?
I just came up on 4 years
Wow.
the beginning of February. So yeah, like a week ago, 4 years.
So
Feels like it's been 10 sometimes. but
39 deals in like before the completion of your fourth year.
Yeah.
That is wild.
Yeah, it's been a crazy all 4 years have been, luckily for me, they've all been busy. So I always think, and I've seen other people say this too, but I feel like in my 4 years, I've got the experience that a lot of people would take 10, 15 years to get, just with the how busy I've been and the amount of business that has come to me in the first 4 years.
Right.
It's really propelled my experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like how you said that. Like it propels you because you can learn you can go to the seminars, you can go on courses, you can listen to podcasts and stuff like that. And that's a great way to get all of the ideas and the concepts, but there's no substitute for actually just doing it.
Yeah, I completely agree. Doing it is, because obviously everyone's nervous when they start something out. But I feel like, and I've seen tons of people say this as well, you just kind of have to jump into it and give it your all and say yes to everything and figure it out as you go. And I find that helped me out so much at the beginning, is just to pretend that I'm more experienced than I am and just jump in and do things. And then it just gives you that experience really quickly.
Fake it till you make it.
Fake it till you make it was huge for me at the beginning, especially being young. And I've heard a lot that I look even younger than I am. So at the beginning, being a young agent and not as experienced as a lot of other people, I really had to fake it till I make it. And even to myself, tell myself that I'm better than I am, because it's easy to not have the confidence at the beginning when you're young.
Right.
So there's definitely a lot that goes into it at the beginning. Yeah.
So, and what were some of the ways that, like, so not having the confidence and like being, kind of aware of your inexperience when you started off, how, what were some of the things that you specifically had to, tell yourself, or was there anything that you, kind of did in terms of your routine to try to not let that affect you?
Yeah. So this is one of the biggest things that I've done that's, I think, gotten me to where I am, and that's daily affirmations and goal setting, especially, is huge. And honestly, before this, that's probably something that I would have thought didn't do much. I wouldn't have believed in it as much.
It's a bit like woo-woo.
Yeah, exactly. I thought there's no way that can actually make that much of a difference. Right. But I did it, and I think that's probably the number one thing that's gotten me to where I am so far, especially with my own confidence, and also just actually putting the pieces in place and working towards stuff, having my goal. Like, with my goals, I have everything down to the week, the month, the quarter, the year, and then I have a 5-year plan that I adjust all the time.
Wow.
So having all that set out in front of you and reviewing it daily, just this job, like, I work for myself, it's easy to get lazy and not work very hard every day. But if you have these specific goals set out for all of those time periods, it makes you get to work right away, because you know where you want to go, and you know that you have to work right now to be able to give yourself the best chance of getting there.
Right. Yeah, I was speaking to a guy, Andrew Perry. He's doing amazing things out in Niagara region, and he was telling me that, like, one of the things that he finds most, I guess, disappointing or confusing or whatever, is when realtors, they don't put in that discipline, and they don't show up and and do the job in the same way that they would do if they were employed and had a boss. And he said, like, the fact that you're your own boss, why would that make you any less motivated to do all of the things that are part of your checklist, to not kind of skip certain tasks because you feel a bit lazy, or you're not feeling it that day. But, like, I think that's probably something that a lot of people struggle with.
And a lot of people get into real estate, and the thing that they say is they love the flexibility of the job and making your own hours. But a lot of, like, from my experience, I work more hours and more of the hours that you don't want to work, the nights and the weekends, than a lot of other people do. So if you're getting into it with the intention of being able to have flexibility with your hours and make your own hours, then maybe you're setting yourself up to be lazy, and you're getting into it for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, I think that's a bit of a running joke. Like, I left my 9-to-5 job to have more time and flexibility as a realtor. It's like, no, that's not
the case whatsoever. Yeah.
So in terms of, like, the way that you've been able to apply all of that, build your brand, and I guess maybe not brand, build the specific value that you bring to clients. Right, and the way that you can provide a service that is different from other realtors and is going to, give them something that they wouldn't get anywhere else. What has been some important things that you have developed as non-negotiables in terms of what you provide to clients?
Yeah, so I think that ties into what I was saying about starting young, being less experienced, and in a sense, being at a disadvantage, because I go in to meet someone, I don't have the experience, and I look like I could be a lot of the time the same age as their kids.
Right.
So that starts me off at a disadvantage. I think now it's an advantage, but at the beginning it wasn't. And my strategy when I started out to make the most of this was I need to offer more and provide more than what other people are going to offer, because if I don't, then why would anyone choose me over somebody who's been in the business for 20 years? I wouldn't myself.
Right. It's almost like you've got to compensate for this thing that might, cause people to hesitate.
Yeah. And at the beginning, that's what I really focused on to allow myself to win listings and clients over other people. It ended up working, but now I think that's been a blessing, because even now that I am established and I do have a good reputation and a strong brand, I'm still doing the same things and even doubling down on them. So I'm just making sure now that I am still providing as much as I can to my clients. Before, it was a way for me to actually get clients, but now it's just a way to give my clients the best possible service that I can.
Right. And so what would be some of the specific things that you feel that you kind of go above and beyond on?
So I try to provide, especially for listings, I try to provide as much as I can. At the end of the day, I'm getting hired to sell the house. It's my job to put the pieces in place to do that. So staging, something that I always suggest. I pay for that, obviously. Working with you guys, and that's something that I didn't do at the beginning, but I've transitioned to working with you guys over the past year, and that's been probably one of the top things, if not the top thing, that's propelled my success in the last year, because I think the quality of what you guys do and everything is just on another level. Cool. So that's something else that I focus on, and it's just the quality of everything. So making sure I work with the best media company, making sure I work with the best stagers, and then on top of that, marketing is something that I'm huge into. I find that a lot of older agents and agents in general don't focus very hard on the marketing side of things, and they don't put the amount of dollars into the marketing that is going to make the difference and get their listing seen by as many people as possible. So I've focused very hard on the marketing. I mean, I have a marketing degree in university, and I've always thought that that's going to be something that can set me apart, especially in the day and age that we're in now, with social media being like at the top of everything and where everyone's eyes are. I found that since I am younger and I've grown up with social media and I know it very well, that if I could take advantage of the social media side of marketing things and do that at a higher degree than a lot of other people, then that's going to set me apart. And I mean, it does convert, and it gets great results. It gets your listing seen by more people. So I think focusing on that's something that has set me apart. And then on top of that, again, going back to my age and being young, I don't have kids yet. I don't have a family. I have more time. So I always emphasize to my clients, like, I do have the time to put 100% of my effort into your listing. Right. 24/7, I'm always available. I make sure that I answer people immediately. And that's feedback that I've gotten from clients, is that I'm always available. I'm always there to answer their questions and get back to them right away. So it's just the going above and beyond and offering more and always being there for them.
Yeah. Is that sustainable, do you think, being available 24/7?
Well, that's why I'm looking to expand now, because obviously that's easier when you're doing a lower volume of business. But as you grow and do more transactions, your time gets spread more thin. Yeah. And something that has started to happen for me in the past year especially is the referrals starting to come in and my name being more known and the phone ringing and things coming to me. And that's based on doing a good job and getting good results and having people saying good things about me. Yeah. So now that I'm doing more business and I've built that business off of doing a good job, I need to make sure that I don't spread myself too thin, because I still need to deliver that quality of service to each and every client. And you get to a certain point, like I've talked to a few people, great agents in the same area as me that have expanded, and to get advice on expanding. And they asked me how many deals I did last year. And they're like, I don't know how you can even handle doing that many deals by yourself. Right. And if I want to keep growing and still deliver that service, I need to bring somebody else on and delegate some things so that I can focus on what I'm really good at and let somebody else do the rest.
Yeah. So what are you looking for? What's the most important qualities of this person who I presume you're still looking for?
Yeah, still looking.
Yeah, what's most important to you?
So someone who can do the administrative side of things is huge, because that frees up more time for me to deal with my clients and get more business as well. But I talked to John Byers, who's the broker of record of my brokerage. He told me something that I hadn't thought of. I was looking for an assistant. He said, if you can find somebody that's not just your assistant who's going to do what you tell them to do, but you can find somebody who is a team member that is going to actively contribute ideas and help you
Right.
grow the business, then you're going to get even more out of it. And I hadn't thought of it that way. I just thought of an assistant as somebody that I offload things that aren't the best use of my time to.
Right.
But I've shifted the way that I'm looking for someone, because if they can provide that value as well,
Right.
then it's just going to help my
So
business
it's going to be
grow.
more of a collaboration as opposed to delegating tasks.
Yeah, rather than an assistant, it's going to be an operations manager.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that makes the search a little bit harder to find that perfect person, but I think for my business and what we're going to get out of it moving forward with the goals that I have and where I want to go with things, I think that's going to just make that much of a difference.
Yeah. Yeah. So have you ever heard of the book Buy Back Your Time?
I have heard of it. I haven't read it, but I should.
I would definitely recommend that book. I'm not even finished it. I'm like just over halfway through.
Yeah.
But there's some principles in that book that they don't relate exactly to what you said there, like John's advice about hiring a team member as opposed to an assistant as such. But it aligns very much with that. This is what I'm about to share here is a wild oversimplification of the main topics of that book. But the idea is that instead of hiring somebody for a role that exists in the business, and that being your mindset, and having like certain tasks that you see as being appropriate to that role, you specifically hire so that you can have somebody able to do the tasks that you are doing, which are creating the least tangible value in the business. So if you can have that mindset and hire somebody to whom, and it might be administration for a lot of it, but there might be other tasks, there might be other things that really suck your time, that if you can delegate those things, that's then going to free up your time. And that's the whole principle of buying back your time, right? You are paying somebody to do something that is going to save you a lot of time so that you can do those higher value activities, like going out and finding new clients, like being there to provide that personalized service. And so it's, in some ways, it's like a subtle shift of mindset. But I think it gives you a much better chance of bringing somebody in that will be able to make the biggest contribution
Exactly.
to the
And
business.
if I'm going to bring someone in, the whole point of that is to grow the business. So I need to, if they're going to be doing those things, that maybe they're doing certain things better than I would do them because I'm focusing more on my clients and finding business,
Yeah.
and not neglecting necessarily, but not putting as much effort into other things that
Right.
as I could, they can take over those things and do probably a better job at them than I do.
Yeah.
So then there's more value being created from them. And then I focus on the things that I do best, and then everything thrives. The whole scope of the business, everything's working as efficiently as it can.
Yeah, and like I think sometimes as an entrepreneur and as like a especially being a solo guy to begin with, it's not always easy to see that somebody else that you might bring in is going to do something better than you. Like I struggled with that myself, and I don't know whether it was partially my ego or it was the fear of like I there were certain things that I'd always done a very specific way, and it's like, am I going to be able to rely on that person to do it in the way that I would do it? What I found from growing my team and kind of adding more talented people is exactly what you just said there. Some of the things that now happen in my business that I don't do, the other people in the team, they do a way better job than me. It's because I have certain skills and I have certain, kind of things that I'm naturally talented in, but then I have things that I'm not very good at. Like for me, administration and organization is something I'm not good at. So, if I tried to hold on to that, like I would have completely limited my growth.
And even some of those things you might be able to do a good job at yourself, but because you're so focused and your time's taken up by other aspects of the business that are more important to you to grow the business and to do the best job, those things don't necessarily get as much of your attention.
Right.
And someone else being able to put more of their time and effort into those things is what allows them to be done at a higher degree of quality. Yeah.
And like more consistently in a more timely fashion, rather than you being like, oh, I need to get to that, but I've got, you're kind of juggling priorities and stuff. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it's totally right. So, so that's where you're at now. You're looking for an operations manager. That's going to be, a big milestone for you at this point in your business. I'm curious though, you said that you had like, you have goals for like the week and the month and the year and even like a 5-year plan. What's your 5-year plan? Like when I think about what you've done in this first, phase of your business, I can't even imagine what you might be planning for the 5-year plan.
Yeah, the 5-year plan is business goals as well as personal milestones and just where I want to be in life in general. Like I said before, I've had to adjust some things, which you do as things don't go as planned, or you exceed. A lot of the time you exceed the goals that you set for yourself. So you need to kind of move the bar up a little bit. I find that I've always made my goals, and this isn't something I've come up with. I've learned this from viewing other successful people. You set the goals a little bit higher than what you think is achievable.
Right.
Not ridiculously higher than you think is achievable, but somewhere where you think it's going to be a real challenge and there's a chance you don't get it, because chances are if you set something, you're just going to put the work in that's necessary to get it. And I've found I've set a goal and then I've gone back and you've been like, you know what, I'm going to set it a little bit higher. And more often than not, you end up reaching the goal that you set for yourself and you review every day. But going back to the 5-year plan, I mean, getting married, having kids, personally, that's something that I want to do within the next 5 years for sure. And other than that, I mean, I think it's shifted a lot more. When I first started out being young and single and out of university, it was financial success based. Still is, but I think things have shifted a little bit more to happiness, having time to do the things that I enjoy outside of work, not being too stressed, just managing everything and getting to a point where my business is at the level that I want to take it to, but I'm not sacrificing the other things in life that are important as well.
Right. It's that kind of clarity is not always easy to come by when you are like, you're just so focused on building the business to, maximizing your productivity. But the fact that you've got that in mind now, I think not only does that, kind of create a better situation for you in the future, but it's going to strengthen your business, because if you were just business, there'll be some point in time where like you just burn out.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't know, like have you felt in the past year or so that you've been kind of close to that point where you just...
Yeah. In 2024, like towards the end of the summer, that was the closest I've ever felt to burning out, and just stress in general. Like constant stress, having a hard time sleeping at night, especially when I had 11 listings at the same time. And the market was slow at that time, and a lot of listings were taking a little bit longer to sell. And that's a lot of pressure, obviously, on the agent who's dealing with those 11 listings. So, yeah, I was spread pretty thin, and I did really feel the pressure of it. I mean, still was able to do the same work that I normally do and get everything done, but it definitely took away from things outside of work.
Right.
The way I was feeling mentally, the time that I had to do other things, neglecting, like putting time into my family, my friends, my relationship. So that was kind of a bit of an eye-opener for me and it's hard to really understand that my business is at this level and it's sustainable, a little bit of imposter syndrome. So I go back and forth like, oh, maybe it just will die down and I won't feel like that again. But I've been wrapping my head lately around, okay, I've been this busy for a long enough time now where it's going to continue. It's only going up. So I do really need to prioritize not burning out and minimizing the stress.
Right.
Because it's just going to get worse if I don't.
Yeah. Talk a little bit more about that imposter syndrome and how, that, like, how does that make you feel and what does it look like?
Well, I mean, everything always goes back to me saying, because I'm younger than a lot of other people that I work with or my competition, other agents, and I'll go into a listing presentation I know I'm against 3 or 4 other top agents in the area, and I have this when I go in there, I go into business mode and I have the most confidence ever. Like I know that I deserve to get the job, but then before and after, I always have this imposter syndrome where I'm like, I'm just this 27-year-old kid. I've only been doing this for 4 years. It's hard for me to wrap my head around where I'm at. And sometimes I think to myself, is this just a fluke? But at this point, it's 4 years in and it's only going up. So I've been better at coming to terms with where I'm at. And at the end of the day, I know what I put in. Sometimes you forget the work that you put in. And when I really think about what I've put in and what I do put in every day, waking up at 5 a.m. every day for the past 5 years almost now, and just having my entire 5-year plan set out for me and working every day towards those goals. There's a reason that it's happening, but sometimes you just forget that and you think, why am I in this position?
I think that is like, I think that's classic imposter syndrome. I've heard people talk about that before and say that like it's this fear that you don't deserve the success you've had, and everything that has gone well, is a fluke, and that's going to change, and then people are going to find out that you're actually not, the capable person that they thought you were, and I think it's just a inevitable part of being an entrepreneur. But I think it probably is even more of a challenge for people who are getting into the industry young. Is there anything that you would say to other young realtors or young people who are about to get into the business, of how they can try to handle that without driving them crazy and discouraging them?
Yeah, I do. I talk to a lot of the younger agents, especially in my brokerage, when they get their license and they join. Oftentimes they'll call me to just get obviously some advice, because I've just gone through it and I'm younger as well. And the biggest thing I tell them is you just have to fake it until you make it. A lot of the same stuff that I've told you that I do with the goal setting and the affirmations and learning, being a sponge and absorbing things from other people who have done it and just implementing them. But faking it until you make it is huge, because at the beginning, that's really all you can do. You don't have an established business. You don't have experience. You probably don't have confidence. So you really do just need to fake it until you make it, and learn as much as you can and do things the right way. But you also do have to put on that act like you're better than you are,
right? So
that you can go in there against other, like I had my first listing was over $2 million in Oshawa. And
your first ever?
First ever. I knocked on the door. I figured if I'm going to start off and knock on doors, I might as well knock on some good doors.
Okay.
So anyway,
That's
so I ended up getting a listing presentation. I'd never had a listing before, and I knew who I was up against. They had told me the names of the other agents who they were considering, and they were names that I knew because they were pretty big names. And that was probably one of the most nervous hours I've had in my entire life, sitting there and presenting to them, knowing that I had no experience and knowing who I was up against. But I just put on that act and faked it like I was, and I knew what I was going to provide to them, and I knew what I could provide that maybe the others wouldn't, and the time and effort, like I said, that I could put into it. So that gave me a little bit of confidence to be able to let them know that there was something that I had to offer that the others didn't. But again, a lot of it was just faking it till I make it. I remember the first question they asked me was, because it's a lot of the time people don't know how many deals you've done, what your background or your experience is, so you can just show them what you're made of in that moment and win them over. But the first question they asked me was, how many deals have you done? Wow. And I remember I had been on, my mom's a real estate agent as well, and I'd been on one listing with her. Yeah. It was her listing, and she brought me on to help her out. So I could say that I'd been on one, but I thought right there, this is probably over. Who's going to hire somebody that...
What was their reaction when you said...
I said I've done one deal, but I said I want to focus on letting you know what I can provide to you. I've only done one deal, but I do have a lot to provide, and I had a PowerPoint presentation, and I have a booklet that I always hand out to people with information. And I talked to them for an hour after that. I thought maybe chances are they already had me checked out after I told them I'd done one deal, but might as well just leave it all on the table and give them all I got. Talked to them for an hour, and they ended up picking me, thanks to them, because that put a lot of trust and faith into me to be able to do it with having so much less experience. But that was huge for me. That was a tough listing too. It kind of allowed me to jump in and
because with that type of listing
right
as well, like the stakes are higher.
Yeah,
it's more difficult to sell. It's like probably going to sit on the market for longer.
Which
so
how
did it go then?
So it was a unique situation as well with the clients. Made it a little bit more difficult and a little more things involved that I had to navigate. Right. And being a higher price point listing, it did take longer to sell, and higher price point listings often take more effort, more time, stronger negotiating. So it was a very, very big challenge, and one of the most challenging listings I've probably had to date. But I'm so grateful for it, because I could have had my first 5 listings all be a cakewalk and easy, and not take much on my end. And I would have set myself up to think that's what the business is like.
Right.
And especially with how things were last year, you really need to do the work and overcome the adversity to get the job done. And that taught me that right off the bat,
Right
which
at
I'm
the beginning.
so grateful for that listing. I wouldn't trade that for the world, because
Wow.
that really taught me so many lessons right away that a lot of people probably don't get
Right.
for a very long time.
So it sounds like the principle of fake it till you make it. There was a question that was kind of on my mind, but I'm not going to ask it because you kind of answered it.
Yeah.
Which is like, how do you fake it until you make it, like without actually being disgenuine and without like, kind of making statements that aren't true. But it sounds like the fake it until you make it is not necessarily like faking it for the client. It's almost faking it for yourself.
Yeah, it is faking it for yourself, for sure. Because that's the way to put that confidence into yourself, to be able. If I didn't fake that I knew what I was doing, I would probably show it to the client that I didn't have experience and I wasn't confident in myself. But it's a combination of faking it, but also having something to provide. If you have nothing to provide and you're faking it like you're the best, then
it's not going to go
that's
well.
not real. Yeah. So it's faking your confidence in that you have the experience, but if you're also providing the value that's actually going to give them the good service and get the job done, then that's the perfect balance of it.
Wow, that's cool. I want to talk a little bit more about marketing, because I didn't know that you went to school for marketing.
Yeah, so
but it makes sense, like seeing the way that you approach it. And you mentioned about how, like, with you having basically come of age at a time where social media was so much a part of culture. That's been an advantage to you in terms of like the social media side, and then obviously the marketing, knowledge and skill that you developed from school. So, what would you say are the key things that you do from a marketing perspective that do generate those results?
So the marketing for me has like two different aspects of it. One with listings and the other with my personal brand.
Right.
Has been something that I've focused very heavily on. And going to university and having a degree in marketing obviously helps with knowing the basics of it and how to market effectively. And then the social media aspect of it, growing up with social media, being extremely familiar with it, having social media since they all started essentially. I know it very well. And I've taken the time to study especially Facebook and Instagram marketing, meta ads, and take courses, watch YouTube videos, just learn as much as I can about how to maximize what you get out of those and actually get the results, like as opposed to just boosting a post and paying money just to have it put out to more people, which, I mean, better than nothing. But I've made sure to learn how to do targeted and retargeted marketing campaigns for my listings and for my personal branding stuff as well, so that you're getting the most out of the money that you put in. You're actually generating results from it. And that's something that I found, especially going back to when I started out offering something that sets me apart, is I found a gap where that's something that's not commonly offered, even with a lot of top agents, maybe the ones that have been around for a longer amount of time, and they didn't do that at the start of their career, and they still probably don't. I found that that's something that if I really focused on that and getting the most value out of that and the results out of that, then that's something that's going to set me apart.
And have you so if you separate the marketing for your listings, right, and then marketing for your own business and your own personal brand, right? So if we focus on marketing for your listings, you've got the MLS listing, obviously, which is like that every property has an MLS listing. I think in some cases that's all the marketing there is, right? What are some of the tangible things that you've been able to see and identify from your non-MLS listing? Like, I know it's not always easy to say, well, I ran this ad and that found this buyer and that's why it sold or whatever. But like, are there any tangible things that you've being able to track?
Yeah, there definitely are. It is. You are right. It's a little bit hard to track certain things with real estate because maybe a buyer could come from seeing something that I've posted or an ad I've run, and I would never know it. But I do track the analytics of all the ads that I run. Yeah, every agent's gonna give you a listing on Realtor.ca and House Sigma, but the difference maker, and I track all the analytics on the who's viewing those as well, and I send those to my clients. But the difference maker is the additional reach that you get from social media. And some people have a hard time wrapping their head around the focus that I put on the social media marketing side of things. But I mean, it's inevitable. Like, that's where everyone's eyes are. I've had listings directly sell. I mean, the one that you shot for me, Fort Perry, that one, the buyer came from seeing my ad. They had somebody who had seen the ad, mentioned it to their friends, who ended up buying the house.
Where were they from, like geographically? Were they from
They were
the local?
from, I can't remember exactly, but it was somewhere a couple hours away from here, I believe.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
So then they would have been less likely to come across that through the traditional channels of MLS.
Yeah, who knows if they would have or wouldn't have. Maybe they weren't even looking in this area, and this was something that just piqued their interest.
Right.
And I've had multiple listings sell, or at least showings booked from people reaching out to me saying, "Hey, can I see this?" So I know that it's effective and it's actually getting interested buyers. And I retarget as well. So I'll run an ad for a just listed post with the photos of the house,
right.
and then I'll retarget maybe the reel that we do. I'll retarget that to the people who have engaged with the just listed photos, or vice versa, depending on which I post first.
Right.
So I'm making sure that I'm really hammering down on the people who are engaging with it, whether they're looking for that listing or not. They're the best quality leads that I have from that marketing. So I double down on that and retarget them. And there's just a bunch of other stuff that I do, like targeting to the area. A lot of the time, especially in Durham, I'm in tune with where a lot of the people are buying in certain towns, where most of them are coming from. So I can target my marketing more specifically in certain areas. There's a lot of different things that go into each, and every one is different. Obviously, every listing.
Right. So it's not just a cookie cutter, like you said. It's not just a boost the post and hopefully that it'll.
No, it depends on where it is. It depends on the price range, the type of property. There's a different type of buyer for every different property. So you really have to analyze that specific property, figure out what the most likely demographic is to be interested in that. Right. And then you have to try to target them as closely as you can.
So that's really cool, because when you first started talking there, I'm thinking to myself, okay, so it's probably more so those like higher end luxury listings that are going to most benefit from social media, because it's going to get reach to people who might not have otherwise seen them. Maybe it's someone who's looking for that specific type of house, not a specific area, so it's going to reach them. But it actually sounds like you have a very, very, very strategic approach that is customized towards that listing and what might be the particular type of buyer who would be most interested in, and that's how you target them.
Yeah, and another thing too, when you post something on MLS, your agent's going to see it, or the buyer's going to see it on Realtor.ca. They're going to see the photos, the standard listing. But if I'm, especially going back to working with a media company like you guys, who does that much better of a job, or working with my staging company, and I always emphasize doing as much staging as possible, doing that to a higher degree, and preparing the listing to look as good as it possibly can with how you prepare it with the staging, plus how you photo and do multiple videos and do all that stuff. If you do all of those things and then you promote it through ads, the buyer is going to see that directly, and it's going to look a little bit better than maybe the last ad they saw. Or they're going to see the reel, which the reel catches your eye, as opposed to just seeing the listing on Realtor.ca. Maybe they scrolled past the listing on Realtor already and didn't engage with it, but then they saw the reel that I posted that showcases the home in a different way, and maybe that caught their eye. Right. So it's really targeting those people from as many different aspects as you can, because you never know what's going to actually catch on.
Yeah, because it's easy to think that, well, I mean, if a home is priced properly and it's on MLS, then the right buyer will find it, and if it's the right home for them, they will buy it. But I guess there's so many different ways that buyers make decisions. Some of them are kind of based on rationale, like looking at the specifications on MLS. Is it the right size? Do they have the right number of bedrooms? Is it the right area or whatever? But there's a huge part of it that is emotional. It's it's based on the impression that they get from what they see. So yeah, that's what's makes me think of. I have a really interesting experience of the opposite. Right, okay. My home that I live in now, I actually think that I got it at a better price than really we should have got it for. and it might not be the only reason, but the media for it was kind of crap.
Yeah.
Right.
That makes a huge difference.
We were looking through homes, and this particular home, the one that we live in, it was kind of on the short list. But I think my wife was like, "Yeah, it's kind of okay, but I like the look of that one better." Now, because I'm a media creator, I was able to look, and I said, "Hang on a second." I said, "This one here, I think this is actually the better house. It just doesn't look
like
good
it.
because
Yeah.
the photos and video aren't good. I think we should we should definitely go and see that one." And we showed up and we're like, "Wow, this is beautiful. This is actually, it looks so much better in person than it does on the photos." And this was in the peak of the 2021 market, right? So we sold our house we had 141 showings.
Oh my gosh.
In 9 days. It was a 3-bedroom semi-detached house in Whitby, like huge demand for it. And it was right at the peak of the market. We got an absolutely ridiculous amount of money for it. I almost felt embarrassed taking the amount of money that we got for it. But then the house that we bought, I think they had 3 offers, and it was a beautiful house. But I sometimes wonder if the photos and video and the presentation of it had been better, it probably would have attracted more buyers.
And you probably either wouldn't have got it, or you would have had to pay more.
Would have
money
paid
for
more.
It. Yeah.
So so I have hugely benefited from I guess poor media.
And that's in a market where everything was inflated and houses were selling themselves for the most part. So
Right.
imagine how much more important that is in the market we had last year, or even now, when you actually have to put the work in and go that extra mile to get the best possible result. Like, that's even more important. I had somebody called me about a month ago about potentially listing their house. And the first question they asked was what the commission was that I charged. And obviously that's, to me, not the most important thing. It's about what I bring to the table to get them the most money. But anyways, they ended up going with somebody else who was going to do it for extremely cheap. And the listing went on, and I looked at it, and there was, like, the toilet seats were up in the pictures. The pictures looked like they were taken off of an iPhone.
Right.
And that house has been sitting on the market for, I guess, a month and a half now, I believe. So you really have to focus on what you're going to get from the person that you work with, because the difference in commission is a lot lower almost always than the difference in what you can actually get for the house.
Right.
Like, what you can get for a house can vary by $20,000, $50,000, $100,000, but when you negotiate a commission, that could be a few $1,000s that you're saving. So I always compare it to if you're investing your money with somebody. If you have $1 million to invest with somebody, are you going to invest it with somebody who's going to charge you the smallest fee, or somebody who's going to get you the highest return on your investment?
Right.
Because that's the whole point of it.
Right.
And real estate's the same. Average sale price in Durham is always around $1 million. That's a big asset. It's probably your biggest asset that you have.
Yeah.
So you really want to make sure you maximize what you're going to get out of it by working with somebody who's going to get you the best result.
Right.
Or do the things that get you that result.
Yeah. Or even you might not even sell the house at all.
Exactly.
It might just sit on
Especially,
the market.
yeah. In markets that are slower, it could be the difference between even getting it sold or having it not sell at all.
Yeah. So what was so I remember seeing you had a bunch of different things over the last little while where you got recognized as I think the top agent in the brokerage, which is like one of the biggest in Ontario. So that's like an amazing achievement. But also like some of your stats, like days on market and stuff like that. Like what can you what data would you say is a reflection of that additional effectiveness of your marketing and the results for clients?
Yeah, I think if the data concerned with average days on market that an agent has with their listings, and sale to list price ratio, what you're getting for, if you're listing something at $1 million and it's ending up selling for $800,000, then there was something that probably went wrong there. So, like, a couple of examples are, without giving specific addresses, but I had 2 higher price point listings last year, a few months ago, over $2 million, one of them, and it's ended up having an accepted offer in 2 weeks when the average days on market for most of last year was 30 or more.
And that's the average days on market in general
across,
for all?
Yeah, across everything. So
this is
obviously
a
higher price point usually takes longer to sell. So there's one there that I had sold in 2 weeks. We had another one that was just under $2 million that we ended up having sold an accepted offer in 5 days.
Right.
So when you look at things like that, I mean, obviously I'm always tracking what I put in and what I get out to make sure that what I'm doing is actually generating the results. And it's
Right.
stuff like that that shows, and I can use that as a case example for potential clients. This is what I'm putting in, and these are the results that are coming from it. So it's definitely important to track when you're interviewing agents to make sure you ask them exactly what they're going to offer, but you have to ask them stats on the results that they get from that, because that's at the end of the day, that's why you're
Right.
interviewing agents, to get the best results. So all
Right.
those stats are very important.
With what you said about, like, you might get a question from a client, like a potential client, like, what commission do you charge? Whereas you like to focus on more what you can actually provide. I kind of find, from speaking to different agents and also relating it to my own experience, that sometimes it's actually just a good way of making sure that you're working with the right kind of clients, like that it's a good fit on both sides, right? Because if somebody is looking for like a lower commission, it's not always going to be the case, but they might feel that they want to be really involved and they want to do a lot of the work, and they want to clean the house and they want to like set up the furniture or whatever it is, and that's why they're looking for a lower price, like a lower commission. Then on the other hand, if somebody wants for a professional with expertise to come in and take care of everything, then they are naturally going to expect that they'll pay a higher commission. So how has that principle, how has that changed from when you first started to now? Do you feel that because of the brand that you've established, because of the reputation, do you feel like you're getting more inquiries from people who are aligned and are that right kind of client, and who just expect that you're going to charge the commission that you charge, but you're going to do an amazing job?
Yeah, I think that's changed a lot over the course of my 4 years that I've been in this so far. A lot of the time people, and it also depends on where people are hearing about you from and contacting you from.
Right.
If there's somebody who's reaching out to me because they've heard my name from 3 or 4 other people who had good things to say about me, chances are they already want to work with me because they know that I've done a good job for these people that they know that I've worked with in the past.
And it wouldn't even occur to them to ask you to drop the commission
I
because
have
they see
people
the
who don't
value.
even ask me what
Yeah.
the commission is sometimes, or people who ask me and I tell them, and that's the end of the conversation.
Right.
Obviously, it's completely understandable for somebody to want to have a conversation about the commission, and
Yeah.
I welcome it, of course. But yeah, I always, if somebody leads with that question or that's the primary focus, I always make sure that I let them know that I want to have this conversation with you in combination with an entire conversation about the whole big picture and what I'm going
Right.
to offer and what's going to be provided to you, because there's a lot that goes into charging what somebody charges. And I think if that's the primary focus of the conversation, then the focus isn't on the most important thing.
Right.
But yeah, at the beginning of my career, that was a bigger conversation with less experience. But now it's not as often a concern that people have.
And would you say that you had to make some compromises at the beginning just to keep on picking up listings and maybe work with people who were not the ideal fit, but obviously you're
Yeah.
still going to do a good job for them. But
At the beginning, you don't want to say no to anything, and you want
Right.
to do whatever you can to get business, for sure. But then, obviously, like anything, as you grow and get the results and build the brand and the name, things kind of change a bit. And now it needs to be the right fit. And I like to be very transparent with people ahead of time as well, with especially home value, because there's a lot of people that will tell you what you want to hear,
Right.
just so that they get the listing, and that sets everybody up for failure.
Right.
So I'm very transparent now always have been, but I'm very transparent with giving people the correct information and not sugarcoating anything, and being honest with people up front, because it's got to be a good fit for both people.
Right.
And you have to go into it with the right expectations.
And I guess that might cause you to lose a listing sometimes, but you'd rather that than it's like go into it under false pretenses and then find that you can't deliver because you've just said, okay, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I've lost listings to people who have either discounted their commission lower than me, or told somebody that the house is worth more than I told them it was worth, and I
Right.
see it go up on MLS and it sits, and the price eventually comes down. I've had countless listings get listed with other people who have started way higher than I said I would start it, and it ends up selling at what I told them it was worth, or sometimes even lower.
Right.
Yeah, it happens all the time.
And there's probably like a lot more stress and I guess, once a listing starts to kind of lose its reputation and they have to drop the price, then it might be that it's sold for less than it would have done if it was just priced right in the first place.
And I've had people reach out to me as well who hired a different agent. Maybe they didn't interview me in the first place, or they did. They hired another agent. The listing sat. They didn't get the result that they were hoping for. And then they look to make a change and they bring me in, and the result might be different. I might come in with a fresh perspective and do things a different way, and it might be the difference maker, whether it's a price adjustment, staging a house that wasn't staged, differences in the way that I market stuff, and then that could be the difference maker that actually gets the job done. So that happens pretty often as well.
Cool. Well, so this has been really interesting speaking to you, because obviously, we've been working together for over a year, but there's a lot about what you do behind the scenes that I always knew there must be something for you to be achieving those results. But like, you really have figured out your process and the various different ways that you can add that maximum value to clients. Is there anything else that you can think of, just like little extra things that you would do that would either get a better result for your clients or in some way benefit them?
Yeah, I mean, I've had listings before where maybe there's a client that's not as mobile and we have to stage their house. I had one last year. Sometimes I'll get people in to move items for staging if necessary, depending if the client's older, maybe disabled, something along those lines. And I had one last year where my client couldn't do those things on his own, and he also didn't want for me to have other people come into the house and touch his stuff. So I spent I think it was the same day that Nick shot my photos at the listing, but I spent the whole morning in one of the hottest days of the summer moving all of his stuff from upstairs to the basement and the garage, moving everything out so that the staging stuff could come in. And it's just little things like that a lot of the time. Like I have a listing right now where the client lives 2 hours away, and there were some little jobs that needed to be done at the house. I kind of oversaw everything, organized everything. I changed a couple light fixtures out myself. Just little things to go above and beyond and help people out that makes a difference. That are things that maybe some other people won't do.
Yeah. It's when you're just describing those little things, I'm just thinking about, they are little things, but they take up a huge amount of time. Yeah. I'm just imagining you like playing Tetris with your calendar. How can I fit this in, and how can I fit that in? Oh, this is a priority, so therefore this thing that was going to happen, I need to find a different spot for that to happen. And then there you are at 5 a.m. doing those things, and probably late at night sometimes as well.
Yeah, but I mean, I wouldn't change it. I think everything that I do is important. If it wasn't important, I wouldn't do it. And it helps the end goal of getting the results for my clients and growing my business and making sure everybody's happy. So there are things that have to be done. Yeah.
So is there anything that you feel that you wish you hadn't done, or that you would have done differently now that you've got the experience that you have to kind of see things that way?
I think there are always things that you adjust as you gain experience and learn. Obviously, you don't know much at the beginning, and you learn as you go. There's nothing significant that stands out that I've completely changed. I think a lot of it's just kind of tweaking things as you go, seeing how different things play out and what works and what doesn't, and kind of adjusting. But in terms of something major, I don't think there's really much.
No regrets.
No regrets. Yeah, you learn as you go. And if there is anything, obviously there's things that I've done wrong in the past where I should have done it a different way, but it's from maybe a lack of experience. And even when you are experienced, there's always things that come up in anything in life where you do them a different way than you should. But it's all just learning experiences that helps you grow.
That's sometimes you have to make those mistakes, or you have to kind of find things out the hard way. Otherwise, you just don't know. So
one thing is that I wish I did more of the on-camera stuff that I do now. And that's not related to listings specifically. It does help my listings, but getting on camera was huge. So that's something that I wish I would have done even longer ago.
Well, I mean, it might have been that would be a good thing to do, but it might have been that some noise in the background. Apologies if that was irritating to anyone's ears. So it might have been that getting on camera and doing that stuff like earlier on would have been an advantage, but it might have just meant that you burned out.
Yeah, maybe. Right? Yeah, exactly.
But no, it's been really, really exciting seeing your journey, and I know that like so many people in the brokerage recognize the work that you've put in. And really respect the results that you've been able to achieve. So like, I'm excited for you for the what's going to happen from now.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that a lot. And thank you to you guys as well. A huge thank you. Because like I said before, I think working with you guys has been one of the biggest things that's helped my business grow over the past year. And I'm always so thankful for the work that you guys put in and how much you help me out and the quality of the work that you provide. And John didn't tell me to say this. That comes from the heart. But yeah, so thank you to you as well.
Yeah, it's our pleasure. We appreciate that. So to wrap up then, there's one thing that I kind of feel would just be a good way to wrap it up because, real estate agents coming into the market, coming into the business, they're always looking for, experienced agents and to see what's worked for them. What would you say, particularly to a new agent who is 23 you were when you started?
23, yeah.
Right? Who is trying to just kind of figure out what are the main priorities, what are the things that I really, really should be focusing on in order to kind of get a good start, right? What would you say are just one or two of the main things they should prioritize?
One would be learning as much as you can from people who have done it and people who are doing it. Like I said before, there's no need to reinvent the wheel. There's tried and true things that work in this business to grow your business. So it's just figuring out what those are and actually taking action on them and doing them. And another thing would be finding a mentor. Having a mentor is huge. I've been lucky that a lot of people in the industry and in this brokerage who have had successful businesses for a long time have been very, very supportive of me and always cheered me on and celebrated the things that I've achieved and also given me tons of good advice and helped me out. Those are two huge things. And especially for a younger agent, focusing on your sphere of influence and your network. An advantage that I had that they would have as well is that we grew up with social media. So everybody that I've ever met, essentially, I have on social media.
Right.
And same with most people who grew up with it. So that's just a very easy way to get your business in front of a lot of people and people that you actually know. It's a lot easier to do than it is for somebody who's maybe older and they're getting in the business and they have 100 followers on Instagram. I have everybody I know on there, so it's easy for me to blast out the fact that I'm an agent. And I made sure I really focused on that when I started out, and that's something that a new agent should definitely put a ton of time and effort into is their sphere of influence and their social media.
Yeah, so we started working recently with a client for social media content, and he said one of the things that really motivated him to do it was that somebody in his network, somebody who he plays hockey with, I think, who he had a fairly close relationship, they found out that he was a realtor after they sold their home, and they were like, what the hell, man? If I'd have known that you were a realtor, I obviously would have chosen you, but I went with another agent because they didn't know.
Yeah, and that can't be the case. You've got to make sure that everybody, and sometimes, especially at the beginning, I felt like I was being annoying because I would send somebody an email or a message on Instagram that I hadn't talked to in a while, just saying, hey, I'm a real estate agent now. If you or your family ever is going to buy or sell, let me know. And it kind of feels like you're being annoying, but something you have to do. You have to let everybody that you know that, plus obviously a lot more, but the core of it is making sure everybody you know knows that you're in the business because you want to be the one that they think of. If they don't even know that you're doing it, then there's no chance that they're going to use you.
Yeah, cool. Right. Well, thank you so much for the conversation, Brad. And good luck with continuing to dominate this industry, man. You deserve it.
Looking forward to another good year with you guys.
Yeah. All right, man.
Thanks a lot.